this is our question for consideration. And the goal of today is to put your minds to considering this question from a variety of different perspectives. Now, to write this essay, you are not allowed to copy each other's examples and all of that. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to break this down today into manageable sections, and then you can go off and find your individual examples. So, you know, if some of you want to use the examples here, if they turn out to be really good examples that you come up with, great, you can argue that amongst yourselves. But ultimately the idea is to entertain this in a way that it becomes manageable so you can see the parts of the question that you need to consider in the course of writing this essay. So, the question is, there is no such thing as a neutral question. Evaluate this statement with reference to 2 areas of knowledge. So, with respect to that, here's what I want to happen. I need 2 people to work together to define the terms of this question. For example, what is meant by neutral? A neutral question. First, you got to get that out of the way. There is no such thing as a neutral question. In order to answer whether there is or not, you've got to be able to handle that definition in some way, shape, or form. Who wants to handle the defining neutral question? Juliana? Somebody else? Okay, Juliana and David, sit next to each other. That is your corner down there. Okay? Now, 2 areas of knowledge. The rest of you are going to look at these areas of knowledge, and you can pick one of them. Who wants to work on evaluating this question, language neutrality, and question from ethical perspective? Anyone? Okay. Nina, you are going to work on ethics. So you can make your little square and put ethics over here. Religion? Maybe religion will go along with ethics. We'll keep that there for now. History? Okay. You are going to do history. Art? Nobody. Natural science?
How do you want to...
What you are ultimately doing by picking these areas of knowledge is you are going to look for concrete examples of how to evaluate the statement of neutral questions. How can you, whether it's an experiment, whether it's a particular way of looking at an event in history, whether it's ethical questions of consideration. Who wants natural science? Who wants social science? Okay, I've got 4 of you for social science. I'll give 2 of you to social science.
Okay, I can do the nature science.
Fine. Dominica and I'll give the Dominicas for social science. Natural science, Christina, and math. Okay, I'll give you math, and so that leaves you with what?
I'm going to do history.
Okay, you'll work with history. What I want to have happen here then is...
Sarah.
Oh, Sarah, sorry. Which one are you going to do? Math. Okay, so you work with Marquesa. Get with the person you are working with. Sit with them. You are...
Sit with me.
All right, listen up. By the end of this lesson, what I'm going to ask you to do is use this paper as a kind of brainstorm. Come up with the best examples that you can and try to, even if you're just jotting down notes right now, jot down how you would evaluate that particular example, how you would unpack it to answer this question. At the heart of neutral question is the idea of language as a way of knowing, perception as a way of knowing, even reason and emotion. So you are coming back to that idea of those ways of knowing in evaluating your specific areas. It needs to be specific. The real-life examples, as specific as the ones I gave you when you were doing your presentations. So you can mark out your little section here and jot down your ideas, and then we can formulate them next week. But the goal right now is to get your ideas down on the page. Good. Now consider, Nina, the language that you're using to formulate that question. Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Okay, good. How are you guys doing over here?
We added a new paragraph.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, we distinguish between information and knowledge.
Okay.
And then if you are asking questions, you are getting information about the knowledge of someone else. Because
So you're
you
kind of
don't
asking
answer
about
what he thinks, so you will get his knowledge.
Yeah. So information.
Okay, but can take it out of the context only of just asking someone else to you're a scientist, for example, or a social scientist, and you are forming a hypothesis. You're not necessarily asking anyone else, but you are doing experimental research
So the
on
answer
this.
you get, you process through your opinions and you sort of interpret it in your own way.
And so what?
So you don't ever sort of just keep the information, but you sort of influence it by your mental process and the way you sort of.
I suppose one aspect of this is all very good, but one aspect of this is there any such thing as neutral knowledge?
Well,
And by neutral knowledge, knowledge that, you know, in some ways you might entertain, for example, the difference between what is information, just raw information, raw data.
Other knowledge is influenced by our emotions.
It's influenced by all of those things.
Yes,
And
yes.
so is knowledge merely information? Or is knowledge the application of that information and then the process of applying it?
isn't knowledge sort of the information in the
All right. One of the things I challenged them with well, before I start in, anybody have anything to add to that definition? Is that kind of the working definition you guys were thinking of when you went through your examples?
Well, I would say that what probably would be like not original, but I guess appreciated would be that these all of these are like negative definitions. Like a neutral question is a question which is not this.
Okay.
So I would say that like some more positive definition and what exactly is a neutral question, that'd be really cool.
Okay, like how could you answer it positively?
I don't know that
It's a question that doesn't contain any subjective biased language and doesn't suggest anything for the observer.
Or doesn't anyhow affect your answer.
So it does not affect the answer that you get.
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, I think we have to go beyond just the notion of loaded questions. The opposite of a neutral question is a loaded question. I think that's one way to look at this. But if we get to what would a neutral question look like?
What the weather is today?
What?
What's the weather today?
What is the weather like today? Is that a neutral question?
Because I'm not saying.
Not if I'm asking it because we're all expecting to go outside and play soccer, for example. So, isn't it about context? Isn't everything come back to context? It's like what Margaret Atwood says, context is all. And here too, if that's the case with knowledge, the thing I was getting at with you guys earlier is this idea of, we can look at this as, you know, the process of asking a question, but the process of asking a question inherently means you are looking for, you are seeking knowledge in some way. And the difference between, and you've read this back in your textbooks, which is why I had you read these chapters a year ago, so that you could come back to some of these concepts. What is information? What is belief? What is knowledge? Information may be neutral. Information may be just simply a fact that is out there. But once you color it with your own personal experience of why are you asking, what are you seeking, and just about anything that you would say of substance in language immediately has those interconnected perception, language, reason where it pops in. If I say, for example, the word tiger, Doesn't that have, to a certain extent, an emotional response in you? Doesn't it trigger something beyond just an orange animal with stripes that has big claws?
Yeah, actually it does. Like yesterday I saw a video of a tiger who actually ate a student who fell into in zoo in India, who fell into like the, I don't know, whatever, the V-big. And it was really brutal.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
And so, not everything has to mean of equal weight, but that's in and of itself. I think the process of moving from information to knowledge is potentially where you want to take this definition. Because, for example, we were talking about, and I'll let you get to it, but this idea of how science may seek out statistics and information, but it's ultimately the application of that where it moves into the realm of knowledge versus just information for the sake of having information. Okay, so we've got aspects of a definition that we can work with. In every one of these areas of knowledge, you only need to choose two. As we go around today, and we will probably have to do it again on Tuesday, start to consider what are the areas of knowledge that give you the most diversity of range? In other words, that allow you to sort of evaluate different aspects of this definition or different aspects of this question. Because those would be the two areas of knowledge you want to choose. You don't want to choose two that have exactly the same outcome. They want to see you engaging in oppositional thinking. Okay?